The huge church was destroyed by the Persians in the 7th century. Its remains lie under these gardens. But what of its treasures?
Maybe the Persian army took most of the treasures and brought them and took them to Persia. Maybe some Jews that were involved in this war took some treasures and hid them again in some places, who knows where.
And what of this area itself?
Treasures of the temple might be here in this area, in some part of the church itself, and we have to know that we dug only 5% of the church itself.
If the Nea story is bizarre, it is matched for strangeness in the rumors which connect the Crusaders and the Knights Templar with the treasures, a connection born in secret on the Temple Mount. In the 11th century, a Christian fever swept Europe. The Holy Land had to be redeemed from the Muslims, and in 1099, the Crusaders conquered Jerusalem. Baldwin, king of the Crusader kingdom, allowed a small group of his followers to live on the Temple Mount itself. Their home, a wing of the El-Aqsa Mosque. The name of this new band of brothers, the Knights Templar. Originally, there were 9 of them, a new order of warrior monks calling themselves the Soldiers of Christ. Within 100 years, they numbered their members in thousands, had become bankers to the King of France, and counted their wealth in millions. Was some of that wealth based on the treasures? This is El-Aqsa today, vastly changed since the Templars lived in it. But the point where the story of the treasures connects with the Templars is not inside the building, but underneath. In the immense vaults below El-Aqsa, the Templars dug secretly for years. Was this dig their real mission, rather than protecting the Holy Land?
I think what's interesting is that they dug for 7 years. If they dug for 7 years, obviously they were searching for something. Some people say that it was the temple treasures. Others say that it was the Holy Grail. We know that there's a lot of rumors that they took something back with them when they went back to Europe, back to France.
Possibly the strangest part of the story is that home for many Templars was close to Carcassonne, the old region of the Visigoths. In Carcassonne itself, there is even a museum commemorating their presence and their secret actions.
Trying to explain the strength and the enormous wealth of this Templar order, people started talking about the wealth stemming from the lost treasures.
So incredibly, part of the treasures may have arrived in the same area of France at different times and by different routes. If so, what happened to them? Startling events that occurred here just over 100 years ago may provide the answer. This is the village of Rennes-le-Château, about half an hour's drive from Carcassonne. Altogether, it has a dozen houses, a small church, and a sleepy restaurant. It seems a village that time has passed by. At one time, however, it was one of the centers of the Visigoth kingdom. It is also surrounded by old Templar strongholds. In 1885, a new priest came to Rennes-le-Château, Béranger Saunière. He was 33 years old. His flock consisted of 200 villagers. His salary was $10 a year. Saunière wanted to restore the ancient church and began working on the project in 1891. While removing an altar stone, Saunière came across 2 Visigoth columns. Inside the columns were parchments, written in a kind of code. One seemed to be a kind of genealogy going back to 1244. The other text, more mysterious and more obscure, contained the lines, "To Dagobert III, king, and to Zion belonged this treasure." Soon after, Saunière visited Paris, a strange visit for a poor country priest. On his return, he started digging around the church and discovered a hidden crypt. He also started a search around the countryside. Meanwhile, the church redecoration was finished, but in the most bizarre fashion.
When I stepped into the church, I was a little bit uneasy. It was a little bit even frightening. And it was very weird, because when you read about this church, for instance, it's a different thing when you visit there yourself. I must tell you that when I stepped into the church, a shudder came over me.
The wall panels seemed to hold hidden messages, while a statue of the devil Asmodeus welcomed visitors. Asmodeus, the guardian of hidden treasures. Saunière's strange behavior continued outside. Suddenly, he started spending unexplained sums amounting to $3 million by the end of his life. He put in modern roads, he built a house and gave immense banquets, and he erected a peculiar tower called the Magdala. Saunière died in 1917. His will left nothing. He had transferred his wealth to the woman with whom he lived. She died in 1953, incapable of speech. Most questions remained unanswered on Saunière's death. The source of his wealth. What happened in Paris? What seems likely is that Saunière found a strange treasure and sold it to the church or a private individual, receiving money in return for his silence. But did he find the temple treasures? Various French journalists think so, and in 1972, the Israeli Secret Service were said to be in Rennes, checking the story. Meanwhile, the mystery of Rennes deepens, but none of the books on the subject answer the question, where are the treasures? Maybe in some wealthy mansion or church vault in Paris, or held by some secret group till the time is right to go public. This idea is supported by a statement of Pierre Plantard, member of the ancient society Prieur de Zion. In 1979, Plantard was interviewed by the authors of the book Holy Blood, Holy Grail. He declared that the society held the lost treasures of the Temple of Jerusalem, and they would be returned to Israel when the time was right.
I don't know if this Prieur de Zion exists at all. One thing we know is that Pierre Plantard exists and that he tells stories which don't smack of any connection with reality.
So far, all the theories about the lost treasures assume they are in Europe. But what if everyone has been looking in the wrong place? What if from the start, the key treasures never left the Holy Land? Many Jewish rabbinical sources hint at the existence of duplicates of the lamp and the other main treasures of the temple.
There is also a midrashic reference from which we can infer that Solomon made an additional amount of menorot, of candelabras, perhaps 9. And throughout history, indeed, we have many references that inform us that there was a stock of additional or duplicate vessels in the event of a